Hi, everyone. I'd like to do a shout out to our sponsor, Baco Diagnostics. Early detection is the single most important factor in improving patient outcomes. The Baco Diagnostics team recognizes how impactful a podiatric physician can be and remains committed to supporting you in your role as the first line of defense in diagnosing conditions of the lower extremity. Thanks to the unwavering support of their clients, Baco Diagnostics has been able to give back to the podiatric community for 16 years by providing podiatric educational resources and advocating for the position. Baco Diagnostics, helping podiatric physicians keep America on its feet. If you have not yet had the opportunity to utilize Baco Diagnostics services, get started today by sending an email to corporaterelations@bacodiagnostics.com. The first 50 podiatry offices who request a starter kit will receive a Dean's Chat mug. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Dean's Chat, where we discuss all things podiatric medicine. My name is Dr. Jeffrey Jensen. I'm the Dean at the Arizona College of Podiatric Medicine and the co-host for the Dean's Chat podcast. Once again, I am joined by my co-host, Dr. Joanna Richey. Hi, Joe.
Hey, Jeff. How you doing?
I am doing fabulous, and I'm super excited about our guest today. It's always great to get some of the younger members of our profession into the podcast world.
Absolutely. I'm really excited about our guest today, too. I'm obviously biased because she was one of my former students, an excellent student. And I've just, from day one, I've been really impressed with Hargan. So I'm excited to chat with her today, too.
Very good. Well, welcome to Dean's Chat, Dr. Hargun Oberai.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me here. It's really humbled and excited to get to know you guys.
We're excited to have you on. You know, one of the things we do on Dean's Chat Hargan is we highlight students and residents and young practitioners, in addition to others that have been in the profession for a long time. So we know how busy you are as a resident, and we're the ones who appreciate your time for sure. So we're super informal here on Dean's Chat. Hargan, if it's okay with you, let's go first names. Hargan, Joe, and Jeff.
Alrighty. Sounds like a plan.
Awesome. Well, I'm really excited to introduce you, Hargan. Currently, you are a almost third-year resident with the Chino Valley Medical Center program. We're really excited to talk to you a little bit about your residency program and what that experience has been like. But I also wanted to introduce a little bit and start the kind of conversation with you. Were a student. You got your doctorate of podiatric medical degree from Samuel Merritt University in Oakland, California, with the California College of Podiatric Medicine. And you also got your bachelor's degree in biologic sciences from the University of California in Davis, which we love our Davis students. There seems to be a heavy pre-health program there at UC Davis. Yeah. But I'd love to start with, how did you find out about podiatry, and what's your story of how you got here?
It started around the time I was actually in college, because I grew up in a medical household. My dad's a doctor, so I kind of always had that plan to go into medicine, but where my fit would be the right fit was in the making after I graduated UC Davis. I took some time. I went to work using my degree, went to work in a lab, and then explored the different careers. And then that's when I found out that podiatry is actually a separate field. And I didn't know that growing up, even though I grew up in like a household with medicine. So, and I thought it was the right fit for me because I always like working with my hands. And I think it's nice because in clinic, you're working with your hands all day, treating patients, as well as in surgery, those fun surgery days.
Absolutely. Jeff and I talk about that often, that so much of what we do is procedural. There's certainly, you know, a breadth of medicine in there as well, but a lot of it very much is work with your hands. And so that has a lot of appeal to a lot of different skill sets and people that are interested in a lot of different fields. What kind of doctor is your father?
It's interesting. He was an eye surgeon in India, and then over here he's a hospitalist. So he's actually done both sides, the medicine and the surgery side. So I remember like when I was younger, actually with him in his clinic, he used to take me to his clinic, and I sit in his chair and play around with the stethoscope as he was like treating the patients. So it's always in the periphery, and I guess it just became my field of passion.
Outstanding. Jeff, what are your thoughts?
I'm curious as to you came to the United States. When did you come to the United States?
When I was 5.
Oh, when you were 5. Okay. And then how did you end up at UC Davis?
Um, it was the college tour senior year, going through to see all these colleges. We had some really amazing teachers in school that took us to see universities in Northern California, Southern California. And then my heart was set on Davis. It was far enough away to be away from the family, but close enough to be able to go back because they're in the Bay Area. So it was very nice.
Oh, that's fantastic. And as Joe had mentioned, there's like a pipeline between UC Davis and podiatry schools, whether it's Samuel Merritt or the Arizona College or Western. I mean, it's just a hotbed for wonderful pre-med students. And like you said, so many students don't realize that podiatry isn't part of medicine, that the application process is different, the boards are different, board certification is different. And it's a funny thing, Hargan, it hasn't changed in the last 30 years.
Well,
We're
maybe
trying to fix that.
we can make that happen with this podcast.
There you go. That's the plan for sure. Oh, that's fantastic. Joe, do you mind me asking another question? So,
No, go for it.
When you were at UC Davis, when did you first get exposed to podiatry?
It was around the time where they have their fair, the pre-health fair.
Yep.
That's when I know they have a lot of tables on all the different categories of like healthcare, from like your MD, DO, DPM to and nurse practitioner, whatever you can think of. And that fair has gotten bigger and bigger from what I hear every year, like thousands of people attended. I wouldn't even know how big it is right now. If I Probably over 100,000 attending it now is from my last understanding.
So I'm curious then, as you were working with California Natural Products Food Safety and as a lab analyst, how'd you find time to get out and shadow a podiatrist? How'd that play out?
Well, yeah, I just kind of like reached out to some people in the area, and some of the podiatrists were very gracious in allowing me to come in and, take a PTO day, try to figure out and schedule in days to see different fields, see what podiatry really is like day to day. And I ended up really liking it. And I was like, I think this is what I want to do. And before I knew it, I was putting in my resignation and going to CSPM.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Any shout outs for docs you shadowed?
Dr. Harvey here in Central Valley. Dr. Eldridge. Actually, I'm in the Kaiser program here right now, and a lot of them actually helped me connect with the local podiatrist in private practice who I was able to shadow.
Oh, that's perfect. Very good.
So I'd like to go back just a little bit then to your experience as a podiatric medical student. You were in school. You started in 2019, right?
Yeah.
And then COVID hit right in the middle of your coursework. And that is how we got to introduce, because I was teaching virtually at the time. And I have to give Hargan a huge shout out, Jeff. I had been teaching at various parts of my own career for almost 10 years. And she was the first student that ever reached out. You get paired up with mentors, right? As we still do. And she was the first student to reach out to me and say, hey, I got partnered up with you and I'd just like to get to know you. It wasn't like there was no, I don't know, ulterior motive, or it was just genuine, like, I just want to get to know you. Could we like schedule a phone call? Because again, it was COVID, so it wasn't like we could meet up anywhere. And I distinctly remember my baby at the time was in my lap and I'm on the phone just chatting and getting to know her and learning about her life. And I would love to get your perspective, Hargan, on what that experience was like to go from traditional school, like it has always been, and then having such a jarring, immediate switch. What was that like?
Well, I did not expect it in the beginning. So this occurred close to our spring break, or just as we were going on spring break of yeah. And what I recall is of our second semester in first year. And nobody expected to not come back, because all we were just hearing, oh, COVID is happening. Okay, it sounds serious. But then you hear there's some patients that are in the hospitals you're rotating at too, right? That are coming in with COVID positive. There's these new mask protocols coming in place. And would remember like getting the email and all the information from our professors that, oh, we're not going to come back in person. School's going to be virtual. And I actually didn't know what to expect from that in the beginning. But I do think the CSPM staff, they were very gracious and so helpful in trying to like transition from like this in-person teaching to like online teaching. And I think it's also the challenge was like the amount of screen time you had to have just for the lectures, and then you're like studying on the computer too afterwards. And that's, I think, when I started buying textbooks so I wouldn't have to stare at a screen all day. Um, but I think I remember like my initial experience of learning suturing was actually online in a Zoom conference. And to say that out loud is so wild because you would never expect that as like your experience in like school when your clinical rotations were supposed to start too.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeff, what are your thoughts?
I'm having some throwbacks to trying to put cases together for our third and fourth year students that were supposed to be on rotation. But one of the things I do think of, Joe, is in Hargan is that our profession stepped up. Everybody from Present to the American College of Foot and Ankle Surgeons, everybody stepped up with lectures and discussions and discussion panels and things to enhance the learning opportunities for third years, fourth years, and residents. So I have, on one hand, you know, you have to play the hand that you're dealt, but on the other hand, it was really neat to see a profession come together and deliver at the educational needs, if you will, of the students at different stages of their college, and then also the residents, because there's a vast difference, as you know, between first, second, and third year residents, and trying to meet their needs online is beyond challenging.
And, you know, it's also interesting this, when everyone goes through something together, like there is some of that like solidarity and like we are all going to get through this together. Can you talk a little bit, you know, having had the opportunity to engage with each other in person, and now you're still a class, what was the dynamics like as a student going through that? And how did kind of learning how to be flexible and adaptable, how did you guys navigate that together?
I think just being able to have each other's back. So communicating when it was challenging and just saying like, I hear you, it is, but it's kind of like how you're saying, just like you have to have that upbeat attitude. And that never ends like in residency either. Like you just have to continue taking it a day at a time and a week at a time sometimes, and just work with the challenges you have. Kind of, I remember we used to have our little group chats, and to make sure we were studying, sometimes we just go on a Zoom call and just do silent studying together. So it would kind of simulate studying in the library, even though it was at home.
Yeah.
I had a couple of friends like that. It was to motivate and make sure we actually studied, because sometimes it did get tough with just being on a screen all day.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I remember the first time we did like a Zoom hangout with some friends of mine. And I remember my husband and I, we had all these people and we're like, this is kind of weird. But then when we were done, we were both like, we needed that so much. Like, it's amazing how nice it was just to see people in a people that you knew, that you could just like talk about things that were hard together with people that you trust. And I distinctly remember with your class, since you were the first one that I had come back in virtually with, saying, I know that this is really hard right now, but your group is going to learn how to be way more adaptable than any other group. And you just said it, Hargan, and I'd love to transition into kind of your residency experience. So many of the parallels that we could draw from the hardship of COVID, which is absolutely was, you can apply that in so many different ways. So can you talk a little bit about how some of those experiences maybe kind of helped set you up for the challenges of residency?
Absolutely. In residency, in the beginning, I think half the battle is learning how to work in the system, and then trusting yourself to know that day by day you are learning. So in our program at Chino, we have different tracks where we all start in Southern California, and then there's residents that come up here to Central Valley, Kaiser, as well as Sacramento, and then some that go to like Kaiser Fontana, because that's going to be the new track down there now, starting this year forward. Being able to maintain a connection because we have our like academics on Zoom, so we all attend it online. All the attendings from the different locations, as well as all the residents, unless they're like in cases. And I think the transition, it helped because it's so it's in this program as well.
Yeah, and Jeff and I will talk about that too, that it's interesting to see how things have shifted in terms of there's so much. I mean, this right now, what we're doing right now, wasn't really something people were doing pre-COVID, and this opportunity to engage with each other in so many different opportunities, no matter where you are in the world, necessarily in the United States. I've had Zoom calls now with international people, and it's crazy. Sometimes you're like, what time is it where you are? And it's like 4 a.m. But, depending on the thing, people are willing to rally and bring their skills together. And I don't know, Jeff, what are your thoughts on some of the post-COVID transition that we've seen with digital technology?
Well, I think even the podcasting world has changed immensely because podcasts prior to Zoom, for example, or YouTube having podcasts was purely audio. And it was interesting because audio podcasts could not be search engine optimized on Google. I mean, there's a lot of changes. So for example, any guest, we've done 200 episodes or so. If you Google any of our guests, and Hargan, you're going to be like this too. If we Google your name, on the page 1 of the Google search is going to be our podcast. And
Wow.
You could never have had that, for example, prior to having these kind of digital interactions like we're having. So, I mean, it truly changed the world for the better. I mean, there's downsides to everything, but there's tremendous upside.
I think it has like improved like the sharing of information and community. Like even though it may feel like it's between a screen, I remember Dr. Richey, I saw you for the first time at the AO conference earlier last year or late last year, and I was like, is that the person I've been communicating with who I have never seen for over 2 years?
And of course, I reached out and I gave her a giant hug because that's what I do. And then I realized not everyone's, luckily you're a hugger, but like, I have to remember that when I meet people sometimes for the first time, not everybody wants an embrace, but.
So Hargan, I've got a question for you about your residency experience. Do you have a clerkship program with the residency also?
Yes, we do. Yes, we.
Sorry. Joe, I'm not sure any of our students have gone to Chino Valley for.
Not yet. Actually, and before we make that transition, Jeff, should we hear a quick word from our sponsor?
Ooh, I think that's a great idea, Joe.
Not to put you on the spot, but.
No, that's all right. Let's do a shout out to Baco Diagnostics. We all know that early detection is the most important determination in improving patient outcomes. Baco Diagnostics remains committed to supporting you in your role as the first line of defense in diagnosing lower extremity pathologies. Baco Diagnostics, helping podiatric physicians keep America on its feet. Hargan, just a little tangent here. We love having Baco as a sponsor for Dean's Chat. They give back to our profession at every level, whether it's students or residents or practitioners. And I'm sure you've had that same experience.
Yes, I have. I think they've sponsored some labs at our school too.
Absolutely. Yeah, they believe it or not, they come to Arizona in the middle of August. And they put on incredible. Dr. Shearer puts on an incredible biopsy workshop for our students. So as always, hats off to Baco. They're just a tremendous partner to the podiatric profession.
Now, to go back to your question, Jeff, because I so rudely interrupted you, I have now talked to a couple different students that have had lots of questions actually about the Chino Valley Medical Center residency program. So. I'll let you either go back to your question or we can throw the ball back to Hargan in terms of.
No, I'm interested because I think it'd be a phenomenal opportunity for our students. Yeah. I just, when we start picking clerkships and things, very often they're regional and reputation and different things like that. So, Hargan, this is our chance to get some Arizona students up to your program.
Tell us all about it. I think it's fairly new, right?
The Chino program? I think it's about a decade. It's coming close to being a decade old.
Shows
A
my
little
age. I'm
over.
like, I think it's kind of new. That's still kind of new.
Yeah, a little over a decade. Yes. Um, so I think it's an amazing program, and I'm biased because I'm at the program, but um, it's because you get to experience these different hospital systems. Chino Valley itself is a community hospital, and from there, you kind of take off throughout the state in California, where you have the track that takes you to Kaiser, and the track that takes you to Fontana, and the track that keeps you in the Southern California region. And through that whole process, um, it's amazing because you get to network with everybody throughout the state, all the attendings who know people in Northern California, Southern California, and you get the best of both worlds. You get to learn the private practice aspect in Southern California because Dr. Shapiro, he's this amazing program director. He's like, I will teach you the podiatry, but I'll make sure you know how to run a practice too when you graduate. So in Southern California, we're with Empire Foot and Ankle Clinic, and we rotate through those private clinics on the days where we don't have surgery. And in Northern California, you're hospital based with the Kaiser system.
And that does sound very diverse, and you can do you have control of your schedule? Can you, in your third year, for example, next year, will you be able to focus on one area or another based on your interests?
Yes, so I'm in the track where I am at Northern California, the Kaiser Central Valley for a year, and then I'll have my last 6 months in Southern California, finishing it off my third year. And there's one track that keeps you in Northern California as the third year chief for 16, so you're here for 16 months. And then the Southern California track, there's one resident that will stay local to Southern California and one resident that will be in Kaiser Fontana. So I think that's decided early on. I believe moving forward, it might be just based on how you rank the program.
Mhm.
So you kind of know how you're going to proceed through the years.
And that makes sense. It's always good to know where you're headed.
Yeah.
And how do you guys set up kind of some of the outside rotations? Are they all put into 1 year? Are they kind of spread out through the 3 years? What does that look like for your program?
So for off-service rotations, most of them are in our first year, and we complete most of them in the first year, and there's a few that trail through in our second year, but by third year, you have podiatry for the whole year. Yeah. And it's really good because you don't just have that first year and you're done. You kind of have a few rotations in second year. I'm actually going to have to finish my vascular rotation second year here, so that'll be exciting. Like a little change from podiatry, but then I'll probably want to come back by the end of it.
You know,
Yeah,
it's so funny. Like, go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was going to say, it makes you appreciate being on service for podiatry.
Yeah, nothing made me appreciate podiatry more than being off service. It's like, yeah, I chose exactly the right field for me.
Yeah.
There were a couple that I found really interesting, but like they either didn't have surgery, and it was like, oh, I really enjoy that aspect of the profession. Or there was a lot of social stuff that's hard. Like internal medicine was so fascinating, and critical care was incredible. But the social aspect was for me, again, I will only use I language here. It was hard for me to navigate all of that. And then I cried a lot on those rotations because you can't, at least in the world that we're offering services, we're going to be doing something and we're not managing some of the social aspect. And so I very much can mirror that. I appreciate podiatry so much more having had those opportunities.
I was grateful to learn on all my off services, but by the last day, I was happy to make the new friends I did, but it's something I did not want to pursue lifelong.
Yeah. What do you enjoy most about podiatry?
I think it's working with my hands, as I said earlier, the ability to fix something in clinic right away, like the little procedures that can improve the patient's quality right away, quality of life. They're like, oh, my pain's gone or it's improved. Thank you so much. And just fixing things is something I've grown up doing. I like playing with Legos when I was younger and then transition origami, work with my hands, and
Yeah.
then to this.
Hargan, when you're done, are you planning on staying in California?
Definitely. Yeah, grew up here. I can't leave.
So if you had a crystal ball, what would your world look like 5 years from now?
5 years from now, definitely practicing, probably practicing in private practice. Uh,
Okay.
so I have the autonomy that I want in my life to be able to juggle my personal life as well as be able to serve my patients in the way I want to.
Very good. And it's good to have that as an alternative, right? Options are good.
And I think that's sounds like a real highlight of your program is having the opportunity to learn multiple systems and start to, try each of those on for yourself and which one of these really resonates with me and which one do I feel the most excited about. And it's not to say that you don't feel excited about, the hospital-based medicine, but it sometimes is where things are set up where you don't get as much exposure. You're kind of mostly in one organizational setting versus another. One more question that I have for you on your residency program, just thinking of questions we commonly get from students. What does your call schedule look like?
Call schedule. Uh, in your first year, you have weeks that you're on. So I think it's total of 6 to 8 weeks. It's varied in the last couple of years because we've expanded the program from 3 residents to 4 a year now. So my year will be the last one with 3 residents. Um, and up here in Northern California, it's 1 week on call and then 2 weeks off. So it is challenging, but you learn so much.
Yeah.
So I can't complain.
Did you have a follow-up, Jeff?
No, shoot, Joe. I always have a follow-up to something.
Well, I know I didn't want to step on your toes because I've been jumping in too much sometimes. So
no, you're good. I was going to comment that when I was in private practice, I went years, on call, but it wasn't like on call as a resident, right? So it's totally different, if you're just meeting the needs of your patients versus the needs of a hospital. So I think that there's not a lot of students are saying, hey, I want to go into private practice. So I think that's neat that you're already in your residency and you're still considering that, because I think that that's one of the major draws to our profession, having the autonomy, having the options to do that if you like. And if you change your mind, you can change your mind. But good for you. I think that's exciting times because private practice does allow you the ability to kind of formulate your practice exactly what you like to do. And I think there's a lot to be said for that.
And as you are based in multiple different locations, kind of spread out throughout California, what does the kind of rotation schedule look like in terms of is there housing available? Are you driving from facility to facility? Kind of what does that look like for the residents?
So all these different locations, we do have housing where we all kind of live at. Um, I'm actually living at home here up in Northern California. So I'm actually really blessed in that way. But for most of the residents, like our rotations do have housing available, like or all the resources available for them to be able to find the appropriate location so they're not too far from the hospitals.
Excellent. And is it like every couple months you're in a location and then you move, or how do they set those tracks up for you?
So in the beginning, you're definitely all in Southern California your first year. And then second year, there is the Kaiser shorter track where people do get to experience the hospital-based medicine before they move back to Southern California for the rest of their residency. And there's those who will have it split basically. The first year they'll be in Southern California, and then for the remainder of their residency be up here. So there's a little moving, but I think it's really beneficial for your education because you get to see all these different hospital systems and you learn from all these amazing attendings and all their experiences.
Yeah, I definitely can kind of mirror that, having been in the Northern California area as well. And we would do kind of blocks, but I remember one of the common things students would ask is like, well, where do you live? Because it's like there's all these different places that you're going. And it does make it a little more manageable when it's kind of chunked, because it's not like you're driving from point A to point B all the time. It's knowing ahead of time kind of how these things kind of are set up and what supports are there. We always had call rooms and that sort of thing available when necessary to kind of support residents. If it's like, yeah, it's a little late, I'm not going to drive home tonight, I'm going to stay overnight in the call room.
And
Do they provide food? Go ahead.
sorry, you can go ahead. Sorry.
Do you get like a food stipend?
In Southern California, yes.
Okay.
Not up here. Oh, yeah, I could just in Southern California, there is a food stipend with the Chino Hospital, and you're definitely able to get lunch and dinner out of it.
Fantastic. I know as a resident, that was always, oh man, I loved it when we had a food budget somewhere. So I still love that. Let's be honest.
I did.
So I have a question for you, Hargan. Through your last 6 years, who've been some of your professor or mentor shout outs in the profession? In addition to Dr. Richey, of course.
I was going to say Dr. Richey first, because during COVID, as you mentioned earlier, like I definitely had a couple of conversations through my externship experience with her, as well as around the time when I was like, how do I rank my programs? How do I do this? And it's like her insight was so invaluable. I think in the residency program, I have to shout out to Dr. Shapiro because he is very supportive and he's there for you, even though I am half a state away. I feel like I could reach out to him if I ever needed anything. And there's Dr. Eldred up here in Northern California who's kind of handling our schedules and like helping, making sure that we're all okay up here. So I think definitely I'm biased in saying this, but I think all the attendings here are very, very approachable and you feel supported throughout the program, even though sometimes you have long call days and they're like, make sure you get a lunch. It's not so much, oh, you're going to starve the resident. They're very proactive in making sure you're okay.
That's excellent. It's definitely one of those, as we've watched the culture of resident education continue to shift into a much more positive experience, it's very refreshing to hear that is what you are experiencing as well. I have a question for you. If you were to, reflect back on when you were a student, what are some of the things that you wish you would have known now that you're a resident? Because nothing is better than hindsight, right? What are some things that you wish you would have known when you were a student going into residency?
I think as I look back, being less nervous about the transition than I probably should have been because you learn it's okay to not know everything. It's a learning process, and that's why you're going through this training for 3 years, is to become that surgeon and doctor that can serve the patients in your community. And it's okay to take everything day by day instead of trying to be proactive and like trying to study everything and being like, I need to know everything going in. You have to learn as you go along. And I think taking it a day at a time instead of worrying about what the future might bring, I think that's important.
Well, I think that is brilliant, sage advice. Jeff, your thoughts?
Hargan, you've got a tremendous quality. When we ask you a question, you think about it before you answer. I always tell our students when they're going into interviews and things, don't shoot from the hip. Take a deep breath, give it a thought and answer, and you're very thoughtful. And I think that will serve you well, not just now, but in the future for sure.
Thank you so much.
So as we start to kind of wrap up our time together, what is some advice then that you have for prospective students that are, what is this podiatry thing? I've never heard of this. What would you tell them about the profession?
I think you just have to go at it and go shadow someone, see somebody in that setting, and learn about that profession in that interface where you can grow. I think it's also important. I think it's important to make sure, because it's a lifelong commitment, the training will never truly end. Even once you're an attending and once you're out there, you always learn things every day, and that's part of medicine. And if you're going into medicine, no matter what field it is, podiatry, MD, DO, nursing, um, you have to be a lifelong learner.
I love that.
Yeah, that's a great perspective because no truer words have ever been said, actually. Things change every day, and staying on top of it's not easy.
No, I see it with my dad. He's always reading his articles and making sure he's up to date on all the medicine that he needs to be to serve his patients. And I think even at that age, if you're doing it, you have to love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, medicine is a calling in many, many ways.
Should we shift into some rapid fire?
Yeah, let's do it.
These are fun rapid fire, unlike being a resident rapid fire where you're literally under the examination. So what kind of music, when you get to pick the music in the OR, what are you going to listen to?
Probably early 2000s.
Okay.
Park is my jam.
All right. I can get behind that.
Absolutely. So you're in the Bay Area. What is your food type of choice if you on a Friday night?
I always enjoy Asian food, so I'm partial to Thai or Chinese.
You know, funny story. One of my kids is allergic to peanuts, and I'm a Thai food fanatic. So that was a challenge for many years. Of course, they're out and about now, but Thai food is my favorite. I love it.
Definitely.
What's your favorite place you've ever traveled and why?
When I've traveled back to India to see my grandparents, I think
What
just
part of India?
like Mumbai
Okay.
area. So just going back and seeing them and connecting with family and my roots was something that I really loved.
Yeah, absolutely. When's the last time you got to see them?
Before school.
Oh, wow. Well, I might see some things coming up in your graduation future then perhaps as fun reconnection
Yes,
time.
definitely. Before starting to work, there will definitely be some trips.
Yes, necessary. Jeff, you've got good stories on that.
Oh yeah, for sure. So Hargan, what do you do to kind of relax, take it easy, get away from podiatry?
I like reading.
Oh, okay. Like what?
I enjoy fantasy and self-help books or history. It always goes back and forth. I can't stick to a genre.
Good for you.
All right. Either favorite self-help book or top three. What are the books that have impacted you the most?
I like Atomic Habits and 12 Rules of Life. I read that years ago, but it actually helped me organize my life more than I expected. Because sometimes you read these books and you don't really implement them in your
Yeah.
life. But I found those two books to be helpful.
Oh, I love that. You know, I'm reading a book right now by Jim Quick, Limitless, and that's exactly his point. One of the myths is that knowledge is power. Knowledge is not power unless you apply it. And it's like, again, they go through all these different case studies, and it's like stuff that seems so much like, oh, of course that's the case. And then you read it and you're like, yeah.
I have a question for you guys. When you read a book and it hits home and it makes a difference in your life, do you like make notes in the margin, or do you transfer it onto like notes on your phone, or how do you ensure that what you read today is accessible a week from today? Hargan.
I'll let Hargan go first.
In a journal, I
Do
have a
you
journal
journal?
where sometimes I do. moments that I want to remember. And then I have my little camera too. So I always have the pictures if I ever have a day out or something with friends. And for books too, I'll write down like quotes or something that I want to look back at.
How about you, Joe?
You know, I was not a big reader until somewhat recently. And actually, I was just telling this to somebody this weekend. The time now that I find where I can just really lean into a book is actually when I travel. So I like intentionally do not do work, despite that that's what my like drive is like, oh, it's like time to sit and get work done. And that is my time to read and work on self-development. But I have found that I don't carry a pen or a highlighter with me. So that's something that I'm actually going to start making more of a conscious effort. So I type notes into my phone. I have a whole scrolly list. And I will take pictures of stuff too, Hargan, when I'll find like something that's just too long to like type in my notes app. I'll just pull the phone out and take a picture.
Definitely.
Fabulous. Any other last words, Joe?
No, I just wanted to come on again and say thank you so much for being bold enough to reach out years ago and foster a relationship. I've really appreciated having that with you. And even though we've only met in person twice, I think it was only definitely AO and then just now at ACFAS. I feel like there was a third, but maybe it was just twice.
Maybe next year at ACFAS, you're just
maybe
manifesting
next year.
that.
Yeah. So again, I have appreciated so much getting to know you and continuing to watch and follow your journey. And thank you for sharing all the information about your residency program and your experiences. We appreciate so much your time today.
Thank you for having me too, and for all your support through the years as well, Dr. Richey. And it was so nice to meet you, Dr. Jensen.
It's a pleasure, Hargan. It was a pleasure to meet you.
I should say Joe and Jeff.
I was going to say, you get to call me Joe now because you are my colleague. So
there you go. Hargan, we're also going to send you a Dean's Chat mug for your beverage of choice, right? Morning, afternoon, evening, your call.
And it's nice and big. So it's like resident sized coffee.
Absolutely. So to all of our listeners out there, if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please give us a 5-star rating or perhaps leave a couple of comments. And if you're watching on YouTube, by all means, become a subscriber. And until next week, everybody, cheers.
Cheers.